Carol Hartman stood by the window, taking a sip of coffee while gazing at the spring sunlight streaming into the garden. In the living room, her 5-year-old daughter Hannah was scattered among colorful crayons, drawing something with enthusiasm. Since Carol had started working from home as a freelance writer, these peaceful morning moments felt like the greatest luxury. "Mom, look! Hannah's kindergarten picture." Carol smiled and crouched down beside her daughter. The drawing paper showed a vivid pink school building and several figures with round faces. "This is Hannah, and this is teacher Jessica. We're all planting flowers." "What a lovely picture," Carol said, gently kissing her daughter's soft hair. "You must really enjoy Pink Bell Preschool." Hannah nodded enthusiastically. "Yes. I've made lots of friends, and the teacher is nice too." Carol was grateful for Pink Bell Preschool, where Hannah had enrolled 6 months ago. Her daughter was a bright, curious child who seemed to have become even more energetic since starting preschool. Still, Carol made sure to watch over Hannah between work assignments and tried to handle the drop-offs and pick-ups herself whenever possible. "Are you working today?" Hannah asked. "Yes, dear. Mommy will be writing articles in her room and will finish by 4. Then I'll come pick you up." Carol stood up and headed toward her study. Today was the deadline for an article for a parenting magazine. While opening her computer, she checked a message from her husband, David, "Going to be late again tonight. Have a meeting with clients. Say goodnight to Hannah for me." She sighed. Since her husband had started working as a manager at a major local construction company, these messages had become more frequent. David's career path probably meant increased responsibilities. While she was proud of him, Carol couldn't help but feel a growing distance between them as a couple. In the evening, Carol went to pick up Hannah. Among the children in pink uniforms streaming out, Hannah's teacher, Jessica Morris, appeared holding her daughter's hand. "Hello, Mrs. Hartman. Hannah had another good day today," Jessica said with a smile. She was young and beautiful, popular among the parents. Her perfect makeup, sophisticated clothing, and perpetual smile made a strong impression. "Thank you," Carol replied politely. Jessica was always kind and courteous, but was it just her imagination that there seemed to be some distance? That night, after Hannah had gone to bed, Carol sat in the living room with her laptop open, waiting for David to return. When the clock struck 11, she finally heard the front door open. "I'm home," David said, coming in with a slightly tired expression. "You're still up?" "I had a deadline to meet," Carol half lied. In reality, she had been waiting for her husband. "How's Hannah?" "Already asleep. She's been missing you lately since you're often not home before her bedtime." David smiled apologetically. "I know. But I've been assigned a major project right now. Once this period passes, I'll have more time to spend with the family." Even as he said this, he immediately checked his smartphone when it rang and replied to the message. Recently, David had become inseparable from his phone, even taking it into the bathroom. When Carol asked about it, he laughed it off saying, "I need to be reachable at all times. David, we haven't had much time to talk lately." "You're right, I'm sorry," he said, but his eyes were already on another incoming message. "Just let me reply to this quickly." Carol nodded silently. She felt an inexplicable unease about her husband, who had increasingly been going out on weekends claiming to be preparing work materials. The next morning, after David had left for work, Carol was getting ready to take Hannah to preschool. While organizing her daughter's backpack, Hannah hesitantly asked, "Mom, what do you think of Teacher Jessica?" "What do you mean?" "I think Teacher Jessica is a wonderful teacher." "Yes, she's a good teacher." Hannah answered vaguely and said nothing more. That night, after David had gone to bed, Carol was sorting the laundry. Checking the pockets of her husband's jacket, she found a receipt from an unfamiliar restaurant. Dinner for two with expensive wine. It was a high-end restaurant they had never visited as a family. Carol held her breath. Suppressing the anxiety rising in her chest, she put the receipt back where she found it. Various doubts crossed her mind, but she decided to stay calm for now. If there's a problem, my daughter comes first, Carol told herself. Mom, my tummy hurts. Carol, in the middle of morning preparations, turned around at Hannah's weak voice. Her usually energetic daughter, who normally ate breakfast with enthusiasm, was sitting at the table in her pajamas looking dejected. Where does it hurt? Carol placed her hand on her daughter's forehead. No fever. Here, Hannah pointed to her stomach. Can I stay home from preschool? Carol was puzzled. Hannah was supposed to love preschool. This had happened once last week too, but she had thought it was nothing to worry about. Let's see how you feel, and if it still hurts, you can stay home, Carol answered gently. However, by the time they were heading to the door, Hannah suddenly burst into tears. Watching her small body tremble while repeatedly saying, I don't want to go, Carol became concerned. All right. Let's stay home today. Carol adjusted her work schedule to spend the day with Hannah. Strangely, by early afternoon, her daughter had completely recovered and started playing energetically. When this phenomenon began occurring once or twice a week, Carol's anxiety grew. Was it just coincidence that her daughter complained of feeling ill specifically on days when David had promised to pick her up? One evening, Carol attended the monthly PTA meeting. In a corner of the meeting room, teacher Jessica Morris was talking with several parents. As people began to disperse, Carol approached Jessica. Teacher Jessica, do you have a moment? Of course, Jessica said with a perfect smile. Is it about Hannah? Yes. Recently, Hannah has been reluctant to go to preschool. Do you have any ideas why? Jessica elegantly tucked her hair behind her ear. Is that so? She seems to be enjoying herself in class. It might be some small trouble with friends. You know, just little squabbles between children. Was there anything specific? Nothing particular. Just as Jessica's words trailed off, Carol's smartphone vibrated. It was a message from David. When Carol glanced at the screen for a moment, Jessica's expression seemed to tense briefly. But when Carol looked up again, the teacher had resumed her perfect smile. Please let me know if you notice any changes. Addressing parents' concerns is part of my job too. After finishing the conversation, Carol headed home with a lingering feeling of uneasiness. The following Wednesday, when Carol went to pick up Hannah, Jessica unusually came out to the school gate. I need to talk to you about something. Carol felt her chest tighten. Hannah was crying a little during nap time today. Oh, why? She didn't give a reason. Perhaps she had a bad dream, Jessica shrugged. Children sometimes do that. After returning home, Carol gently asked Hannah, I heard you cried during nap time today. What happened? Hannah silently hugged her stuffed animal. I don't remember. Really? If something's bothering you, you can tell Mommy. Okay. Hannah didn't want to talk any further. That Friday, David came home late, saying he had been dining with clients. Carol and Hannah had already finished dinner and were watching TV in the living room. I'm home, David's voice echoed from the entrance. It's Daddy, Hannah, Carol said, and her daughter's body stiffened. When David entered the living room, Hannah suddenly jumped off the sofa and ran to her room. What's wrong with her? David looked at Carol with a confused expression. I don't know. She's been acting strange lately. Carol answered anxiously. David shrugged tiredly, saying, Kids are fickle, and took a beer from the refrigerator. Over the weekend, Carol took Hannah to Green Park. The autumn sunlight was pleasant, and many families were enjoying the park. While watching Hannah play in the playground area, Carol noticed a familiar face. Carol. Hello. It was Lisa, the mother of Sophia, who attended the same class at Pink Bell Preschool. Hello, Lisa, Carol smiled. The two sat on a bench, watching their children play while chatting. How is Sophia? Is she enjoying preschool? Carol asked casually. Lisa's expression became thoughtful. Actually, I've been a bit concerned lately. She seems less energetic, and I wonder if something's wrong. Carol looked up in surprise. Really? Hannah's the same way. Some days she doesn't want to go to preschool. Sophia too. Lisa's eyes widened. Recently, she often says her tummy hurts and tries to stay home. The two exchanged worried glances. I wonder what's going on, Lisa said in a low voice. I thought Jessica was a wonderful teacher, but... Yes. Carol agreed, feeling anxiety rising within her. After returning home, Carol tried to talk to David about it. He was unusually at home on Sunday afternoon, reading the newspaper. David, don't you think there's something strange about Hannah's behavior? How so? David didn't look up from the sports section. She doesn't want to go to preschool, she runs to her room when you come home. I'm worried there might be a problem. David finally looked up from his newspaper. Carol, children are moody. Aren't you being a bit too neurotic? But Lisa, Sophia's mom, feels the same way. Probably just mothers gossiping and getting worked up, David laughed lightly. Hannah seems perfectly fine to me. You're just babying her too much. Carol wanted to argue, but felt it would be pointless to continue. David immediately started checking his smartphone, and the conversation naturally ended. On Sunday afternoon, the autumn sunlight slanted through the window, casting long shadows on the living room floor. David had left after breakfast, claiming he had an urgent meeting with a client. Carol finished washing the dishes alone and was folding laundry, worried about Hannah. Her daughter was sitting quietly on the sofa, surrounded by stuffed animals, looking at a picture book. Recently, she had lost her usual liveliness and seemed almost fearful. Carol looked at Hannah while holding the laundry basket and spoke gently. Hannah, let's get ready for preschool tomorrow. I've washed your clothes. Hannah nodded slightly but wouldn't meet her eyes. Let's wash your bag too. It's quite dirty. Carol took Hannah's small pink preschool bag. The outside was stained with mud and what looked like juice spilled during lunch. While emptying the bag, Carol carefully removed the drawing papers and notification printouts her daughter had brought home. Checking a small side pocket, her fingertips touched something hard. Carol pulled it out. It was a pink plastic hair clip, one Hannah had received as a Christmas present. But it was broken in the middle. Hannah, your hair clip is broken. What happened? Hannah looked up but quickly lowered her eyes back to the picture book. I don't know. While Carol was puzzled, she checked the bottom of the bag for a final inspection before washing it. There was something small and crumpled in the corner of the bag. Taking it out, she saw it was a handkerchief. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary white handkerchief, but part of it was discolored brown. Carol stared at the handkerchief in her hand. Looking closer, it was clearly a bloodstain. Dried and turned brown, but undoubtedly blood. Suddenly feeling a tightness in her chest, she stood up and turned toward Hannah. Hannah, Carol's voice trembled. What happened with this? Hannah, surrounded by stuffed animals and picture books in the living room, changed color when she saw the bag and the blood-stained handkerchief. She shook her head slightly and curled up, hugging her knees. Carol slowly approached the sofa and sat next to her daughter. It's okay, Hannah. I'm not angry. Can you tell me why there's blood on your handkerchief? Hannah remained silent for a while, but eventually whispered, I was told I'd get in more trouble if I told Mom. Carol felt a chill run through her entire body. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Who? Who said that? Carol asked gently but firmly, looking directly into her daughter's eyes. Hannah looked around fearfully, as if checking that no one was eavesdropping. Then, in an even smaller voice, she answered. Teacher Jessica. Carol caught her breath. Her heart was pounding heavily. What did Teacher Jessica do to you? Tears welled up in Hannah's eyes. On days when Daddy comes to pick me up, I was waiting in the teacher's room. At Hannah's words, various fragments began connecting in Carol's mind. The days David said he would pick up Hannah from preschool. The days Hannah didn't want to go to preschool. And the late night returns and the receipt found in his jacket. And then? Carol asked with a shaking voice. Daddy and Teacher Jessica were kissing. Hannah began to cry. I was surprised and hid right away. But the teacher found me. Carol almost choked but desperately maintained composure so as not to interrupt her daughter's story. And then? When I tried to run away, I fell, hit my head and it bled. Hannah pointed to the right side of her forehead. Indeed, there was a small wound that Carol had noticed last week. She had thought it happened while playing with friends. Teacher Jessica said, "Don't tell Mommy about this. Or Mommy and Daddy will get divorced." Hannah's little voice trembled. If Mommy and Daddy started living separately because of me, because I'm a bad girl. Anger and fear coursed through Carol's entire body. In her mind, all the previous feelings of unease and anxiety were connecting into one reality. Hannah, listen, Carol desperately maintained her composure as she held her daughter's hand. You haven't done anything wrong. Nothing is your fault. What Daddy and Teacher Jessica were doing was wrong. Not you. Hannah still looked at Carol with a frightened expression. But because I saw them. Even so, you're not at fault at all, Carol said firmly. Thank you, Hannah. For being brave enough to tell me. I'm very proud of you. Carol silently closed the bag and carefully placed the broken hair clip and blood-stained handkerchief in a Ziploc bag. While pretending to be calm, a volcano-like anger was rising inside her. Her daughter had been threatened. And probably other children too. Hannah, put your coat on, Carol said in a calm voice. We're going out. Where are we going? Hannah asked anxiously. It's okay, Carol said while helping her daughter with her small coat. Mommy will protect you. No one will frighten you anymore. Carol helped Hannah put on her coat and put on her own jacket. Finally, she placed the Ziploc bag in her purse along with her wallet, then took her daughter's hand and headed for the door. Before getting into the car, Carol sent a message to her sister Jennifer on her mobile phone, going to the police now. David and Hannah's teacher are having an affair, and my daughter was threatened. I have evidence. Please inform our parents if they try to contact me. After sending the message, Carol took a deep breath. As she turned the car key, she was determined. She was ready to face whatever difficulties lay ahead to protect her daughter from this incident. As she started the car, Carol looked at Hannah in the back seat. Her small daughter was anxiously gazing out the window. Everything will be all right now, Hannah, Carol said quietly but with a firm voice. You've done nothing wrong. Mommy is here with you. As she drove toward the local police station, Carol tightly held little Hannah's hand. Reesdale Police Station was relatively quiet on Sunday afternoon. Carol firmly held Hannah's small hand and approached the reception desk. Hello, how can I help you? The desk officer asked. Carol suppressed the trembling in her throat and answered, I'd like to consult about a suspected case of child abuse. At those words, the officer's expression tightened. Please wait a moment. A few minutes later, they were guided behind a door marked Special Child Protection Unit. The room, neither too large nor too small, contained softly colored furniture and books and toys for children. The walls were decorated with posters explaining children's rights and bright, colorful pictures. "Mrs. Hartman, please come this way." The one who called out in a gentle voice was a female detective who appeared to be in her mid-40s. She showed her badge and introduced herself. "I'm Detective Allison Carter." "And who is this?" Allison smiled warmly at Hannah. "My daughter Hannah," Carol answered. "She's 5 years old." Allison crouched down to Hannah's eye level and spoke kindly. "Hello, Hannah. You must have been scared, but don't worry. This is a safe place." Hannah nodded slightly while hiding behind her mother. "Hannah, would you tell me your story? We can go to another room and talk while playing with toys." Carol put her hand on Hannah's shoulder. "It's okay, Hannah. Mommy will wait here. Detective Carter is a kind person, so you can tell her anything." Hannah looked up at Carol anxiously but eventually nodded slightly. Allison called a female officer who guided Hannah to a child-specific interview room. "Mrs. Hartman, let me first hear the details from you." Allison invited Carol into a separate room. Carol opened her bag with trembling hands and took out the Ziploc bag containing the blood-stained handkerchief and broken hair clip. "I found these in my daughter's bag," Carol said, trying to steady her voice as she submitted the evidence. "It seems my daughter witnessed an affair between her teacher and my husband and was told to keep quiet about it." Allison quietly nodded and took notes. "When did you first become suspicious?" Carol explained in detail, starting with the changes in Hannah's behavior, her husband coming home late, Hannah wanting to stay home from preschool, and finally leading to today's discovery. As she spoke, tears of anger welled up in her eyes. "My daughter did nothing wrong, yet she was told, 'It will be your fault if Mommy and Daddy get divorced.'" Carol clenched her fist. "I can't forgive this." Allison nodded understandingly and said, "What you've done today by coming here was a very courageous act. We'll investigate this matter as a top priority. But first, we need to contact your husband." Carol exhaled deeply. "I understand." For the next hour, Allison collected detailed information from Carol, and Hannah's interview was carefully conducted. In the child-specific interview room, a specialized psychological counselor used dolls to naturally draw testimony from Hannah. Around 4 p.m., the door of the police station opened forcefully, and David rushed in looking flustered. Having received a call from Carol's sister Jennifer, he had interrupted his meeting with clients and hurried over. "Carol. What's going on? Where's Hannah?" He raised his voice at the reception. Allison guided David to a separate room and explained the situation. At first, David strongly denied it, saying it was a misunderstanding. "That's impossible. My relationship with Jessica is purely professional." However, when confronted with the blood-stained handkerchief and Hannah's detailed testimony, his expression changed. Sweat appeared on his forehead, and he sank deep into his chair. David choked. "It's a mistake. Hannah must have misunderstood something." Allison spoke calmly but severely, "Your daughter has given very specific testimony. The dates, places, even the words that were said." David covered his face with both hands. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "There was a relationship. But Jessica didn't hurt Hannah. It was an accident." David's voice was trembling. "I was surprised when Hannah came into the room. She fell and hit her head. It really was an accident. And you and teacher Jessica Morris threatened a 5-year-old child to keep quiet." Allison calmly stated the fact. David silently bowed his head. "Considering the possibility that other children may have witnessed or experienced similar acts, we will proceed with an investigation in cooperation with the school." Allison stood up. "We will also contact Jessica Morris for questioning." David looked up. "She is. Don't worry about her," Allison said sternly. "You will also continue to cooperate with the investigation regarding the possibility of psychological abuse against children." Carol was waiting in another room. When Allison returned, she stood up with a tired expression. "Your husband has admitted it," Allison said quietly. "Both the relationship with Jessica Morris and what Hannah witnessed." Carol gripped the edge of the table tightly. "What about the other children? Lisa's daughter Sophia might have seen something too." "We'll contact the school and begin an investigation," Allison nodded. "We'll summon Ms. Morris for questioning." That evening, Jessica Morris appeared at the police station. Her perfect makeup and sophisticated clothing remained unchanged, but her expression was hard, and fear was visible in her eyes. In response to Allison's questioning, Jessica initially completely denied both the relationship and the threats. "I care about Hannah as her teacher. It's true that she fell, but that was just an accident," Jessica answered in a composed voice. "There is no relationship with David." However, faced with Hannah's detailed testimony and the blood-stained handkerchief, her confidence gradually crumbled. Especially when specifically confronted with the statement, "It will be your fault if Mommy and Daddy get divorced," Jessica changed color. Jessica lowered her gaze. "I've been in a relationship with David for 3 months. When Hannah saw us and fell in surprise, he got angry and..." "He did?" Allison asked sharply. Jessica closed her eyes. "David," shouted at Hannah. "Don't tell anyone." As the investigation progressed further, Jessica admitted that she had also told other children not to talk about adult secrets they had seen. Several children, including Sophia, had accidentally witnessed intimate moments between Jessica and David. "Why did you threaten the children?" Allison calmly asked. "I didn't want to lose my career," Jessica answered in a small voice. "And David, he said, keep it secret at all costs." Allison heaved a deep sigh. "Ms. Morris, as an educator, you were in a position to protect children, yet you threatened them for your own convenience. This constitutes psychological abuse of children." Jessica began to cry. That night, the school cooperated with the investigation and immediately suspended Jessica. Following Allison's instructions, the school contacted all parents to explain the situation and appropriate care for the children. Before leaving the police station, Allison gave Carol a list of lawyers. "Mrs. Hartman, it would be good to consult about the upcoming legal procedures. Jessica Morris may be charged with psychological abuse of children and concealment of evidence. I should inform you that your husband may also be treated as an accomplice." Carol nodded. Though her face was pale from fatigue and shock, her eyes held a light of determination. "Thank you, Detective Carter," she said quietly. "For the sake of the children, I believe we need to reveal the truth." As they left the police station, Carol embraced Hannah. In the warm twilight light, she looked directly into her daughter's eyes and said, "You were brave. And you did the right thing." Hannah nodded slightly and clung to her mother. "From now on, Mommy will protect you," Carol promised. Holding her daughter's small hand tightly, she was about to take the first step into a new life. Spring sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, gently touching the tulips on the table. Carol took a sip of coffee while lightly tapping on her laptop keyboard. 6 months had passed, and she and Hannah had started a new life in a small suburban apartment. "Mom, look." Hannah came running with a drawing she had made. It showed 2 figures holding hands standing under a blue sky. "Mom and Hannah." "That's lovely," Carol smiled and gently stroked her daughter's head. The divorce had been finalized last month, and Carol had been granted sole custody of Hannah. David was allowed supervised visitation rights and was paying regular child support. The first few months had exhausted Carol with legal battles, but now a new routine was taking shape. Hannah was attending counseling for children once a week and was gradually regaining her brightness. She was enjoying her new preschool and had made friends. Carol had expanded her work-from-home writing job and established herself as an official columnist for Parenting Journal, a parenting magazine. This morning, she was making final revisions for a deadline. Carol's laptop chimed with a notification. She had received an email. Opening it, she saw it was from the court. It was a notice that Jessica Morris's sentence had been finalized. A suspended sentence and revocation of her teaching license. The judge had probably considered her remorseful attitude and cooperation after the incident. She had heard that Jessica had returned to her hometown in Idaho and was working at her parents' flower shop while engaging in community service. David had lost his promotion opportunity and his position in the company had weakened, but he was sincerely undergoing mandatory psychological counseling to atone for his wrongdoing. He regularly wrote letters to Hannah, vowing to continue to strive until the day I can be forgiven. Carol had started a blog based on her experiences. Unexpectedly, she had received sympathy and support from many parents, and a small community was beginning to form. "Carol, are you ready?" The doorbell rang, and her sister Jennifer peeked in. "Everyone in the group is waiting for you." Carol smiled. It was a gathering of the parenting support group she had joined at her sister's recommendation. There, she had met Matthew, a psychological counselor. He was a kind and sincere man who had naturally bonded with Hannah. "Hannah, shall we go see Uncle Matthew?" "Yes." As Carol took her coat, she looked around her home once more. This place, though small, was bathed in warm light and had now become a safe haven for her and Hannah. That night, after Hannah had gone to bed, Carol began writing a new article for her blog. Listening to our children's voices. That might be the most important thing we as parents can do. Because what they cannot express is often what we most need to hear. Outside the window, stars twinkled, quietly announcing the arrival of a new season.